I didn't write a book to get published. I wrote it to survive. And the man who promised to make me a writer spent 6 years stealing every word I put on paper, selling my ideas to his clients for $15,000 a consultation, and telling me I wasn't ready yet. When I finally finished the manuscript that told the whole truth, he looked me in the eye and said, "If you publish that book, I will end your life." For a long time, I believed him. My name is Iris Caldwell, and I was a copywriter at a small marketing firm in Richmond, Virginia. I made $2,000 a month writing product descriptions for furniture catalogs and cleaning up press releases no one would ever read. I lived in a studio apartment in Church Hill, $475 a month, with a radiator that clanged all winter and a window that looked out at a brick wall. I woke up at 5 every morning to write before work. Not because I was disciplined, but because the words wouldn't let me sleep. I had 7 novels sitting in a folder on my laptop, 7 complete manuscripts, stories about women who found strength in impossible places, who walked through fire and came out holding something worth keeping. I'd been writing since I was 11, filling notebooks in the back of classrooms and on city buses, but I'd never shown anyone, not a single page. I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think anyone would care. Before we continue, remember that this is still a small channel and I could really use your support. Please like the video and subscribe. It's free and it helps more than you know. Then I met Garrett Moss. He owned Moss Creative Group, one of the top branding agencies on the East Coast. They had offices in 3 cities, a client list that included national restaurant chains and tech startups, and Garrett himself was the kind of man who walked into rooms and made everyone else feel smaller. He was 51, silver hair, expensive watch, the kind of voice that made promises sound like facts. I met him at a networking event I didn't want to attend. My boss made me go. I was standing near the back with a plastic cup of wine. I wasn't drinking when my folder slipped out of my bag and pages scattered across the floor. Garrett helped me pick them up. He read the first paragraph. His eyes changed. "You wrote this?" I nodded. He smiled. "This is extraordinary. You're wasting your time writing furniture copy. You should be writing novels. I need to publish you." That sentence, "I need to publish you," changed everything. We started meeting for coffee, then dinners. He told me about the publishing contacts he had, the agents he knew, the book deals he'd helped broker for other writers. He said I had a voice the industry was desperate for, that my work was raw and real and exactly what readers wanted. Within 3 months, we were together. Within 6 months, I'd quit my job and moved into the townhouse he owned in the Fan District. He said I needed to focus on my art, that he'd take care of everything else. I believed him. For 2 years, I wrote full-time. I revised the novels he said needed work. I wrote new chapters based on his notes. I rewrote beginnings, middles, endings. He read everything. He always found something wrong. The pacing is off here. This character doesn't feel authentic. The emotional arc isn't landing. Trust me, Iris. I know what sells. You're close, but not quite there yet. I never saw a contract. I never met an agent. But I kept writing because he kept promising. Soon, he'd say. Very soon. Meanwhile, I noticed things. Small things that didn't add up. A client presentation where he described a campaign concept that sounded exactly like a chapter I'd written about a woman rebuilding her life after losing everything. A pitch meeting I overheard through his office door, where he talked about narrative frameworks for a wellness brand that mirrored the structure of my second novel. When I asked him about it, he laughed. "Iris, these are universal themes. You don't own the idea of redemption." I felt crazy for even asking. 3 years in, I tried to leave. I told him I needed to get back to work, that I couldn't keep living off him, that something felt wrong. He didn't yell. He didn't have to. He just looked at me with that calm, steady gaze and said, "You really think anyone else is going to take a chance on you? You haven't worked in 3 years. You have no income, no references, no network. I gave you all of this. Time, support, a place to live. You owe me." And he was right. I had nothing, no savings, no job history, no way out. So I stayed. But I also started paying attention. 4 years in, I found the file. It was on his laptop, left open while he was in the shower, a folder labeled Consulting Revenue. Inside were invoices to his corporate clients, $15,000 for narrative consulting, $20,000 for brand storytelling frameworks, $35,000 for campaign concept development. The documents attached were my manuscripts, my novels broken into pieces, repackaged as corporate strategy, sold to companies that wanted emotional storytelling for their marketing. He'd made over $400,000 selling my work. Work I'd written while he told me I wasn't ready. Work he said needed more revisions. Work he promised to publish someday. I sat there staring at the screen until the shower turned off. Then I closed the laptop and didn't say a word. That night I started planning. I couldn't just leave. I had no money, no job, nowhere to go. So I got quiet. I stopped arguing. I stopped asking about publication. And late at night, while he slept, I started taking freelance editing gigs under a fake name, using a library computer. $5 an hour proofreading academic papers, $10 an hour fixing resumes. I saved every cent in an account he didn't know about. $75, $120, $215. It took me 8 months to save enough for first and last month's rent on a basement apartment in Scott's Addition. Another 3 months to finish the new manuscript I was writing in a composition notebook I kept hidden inside a hollowed-out cookbook on the shelf. This book was different. It wasn't fiction trying to be universal. It was my story, barely disguised. A woman trapped by a man who used love as leverage, who stole her voice and sold it, who convinced her she was nothing without him. It was the truth, and it was the best thing I'd ever written. 5 months ago, I left. I packed one suitcase, left a note on the kitchen counter that said I deserved better, and walked out. I moved into the basement apartment. It had exposed pipes and a cement floor and cost $350 a month. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever lived. Garrett lost his mind. Calls, texts, emails. You'll regret this. You're making a mistake. You need me. I blocked him on everything. But Garrett had reach. He called every publisher he knew, which was most of them. Iris Caldwell is unstable. She plagiarizes. She's difficult to work with. Don't touch her. I found out when I tried to submit my manuscript. Form rejections, silence. One editor was honest enough to tell me off the record, "Your name is flagged." I'm sorry. 2 weeks ago, it escalated. Garrett found out I'd finished the book. A book about him. About everything. He showed up at my apartment with a lawyer. "You publish that and I will destroy you. I will sue you for defamation. I will make sure you never work again." I know people, Iris. Dangerous people. You have no idea what you're playing with. I stood in the doorway and said, "I already lost everything, Garrett. You took 6 years. You're not taking anything else." That night, I got messages from unknown numbers. "Back off. This isn't worth it. You'll regret this." I sat on the floor of my basement apartment with my notebook and a bottle of cheap wine and cried until my ribs hurt. The next morning, the sun came through the high window in a narrow stripe of light. I looked at it and realized something. Garrett only had power if I believed he had power. I opened Instagram, created a new account, Iris Writes True. I posted a single paragraph from my manuscript. A woman who discovers the man she loves has been selling her soul while telling her she's not ready. 63 likes in 2 hours. I posted another paragraph, this one about manipulation disguised as mentorship. 300 likes. Comments started coming. I lived this. Thank you for saying it. When does the book come out? I smiled for the first time in weeks. I kept posting fragments of the manuscript, reflections on creative abuse, pieces of my story in short, honest bursts. In 4 days, I had 12,000 followers. In a week, 40,000. People shared it, tagged friends. Do you see this? This woman is telling the truth. A few mid-tier book influencers picked it up. Who is Iris Caldwell? These words are devastating. Garrett saw it. He tried to post his own version, calling me a liar, but the internet didn't believe him. Other women started coming forward, writers who'd worked with him. He did the same thing to me. He took my pitch and gave it to his client. He promised me a book deal that never happened. His name appeared over and over. The agency started losing clients. 3 weeks later, I got an email from a small press in Asheville called Langford House. Iris, I've been following your work online. I want to publish your book. I can't offer much up front, maybe $6,000, but I can offer you respect, creative control, and 25% royalties. If you're interested, let's talk. I read it 3 times, then I cried. Then I wrote back, yes. The book came out 4 months later. First print run, 2,000 copies. My 40,000 Instagram followers bought it in the first 5 days, sold out. Second printing, 8,000 copies, gone in a week. It wasn't just a book, it was a reckoning. I wrote about emotional abuse in creative industries, about men who use power to silence women, about finding your voice after someone stole it. The reviews started coming. A searing debut, said one literary blog. Iris Caldwell writes like someone who survived a war and came back to tell the truth. The book hit a regional bestseller list, then a national one. Critics couldn't ignore it anymore, even the ones Garrett knew. Garrett tried to sue for defamation, but the book was fiction, and I'd been careful. More importantly, other women kept talking. A journalist wrote an exposé about his consulting business, how he'd built it by stealing ideas from young writers he promised to mentor. Moss Creative Group lost half its client base in 2 months. Partners left. He sold the company 9 months later for a fraction of what it was worth. He tried to reach out one more time. Iris, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I want to make it right. I read the message, didn't respond. Not out of anger, just because there was nothing left to say. That chapter was over. A year later, I was at a book signing in a small shop in Carytown. A line of 150 people wrapped around the block. A girl, maybe 20, came up holding a worn copy of my book. It was covered in highlighter and notes in the margins. "You saved my life," she said, crying. "I was in a relationship just like this. I thought it was love. Your book showed me it was a cage. I got out. I'm rebuilding now." I hugged her. "You saved yourself. I just put words to what you already knew." That night, I went back to my apartment in Scott's Addition. Still small, still a basement. But I could afford something bigger now. I chose not to move. I sat at the desk where I'd written the book by hand in a notebook, opened my laptop, and started the next one. This one was about what comes after, about women who, after walking through fire, learn how to build something that won't burn. My phone buzzed, a text from my editor at Langford House. "Iris, Netflix wants the rights. They're offering $350,000. Want me to negotiate?" I smiled. Wrote back, "Negotiate. But it's not about the money. I want creative control." "You always do," she replied. I looked out the high window. The sun was setting, painting the brick wall across the alley in shades of amber and rust. I thought about the woman I was a year ago, scared, controlled, silenced. Then I looked at the woman I was now, free, writing, telling my own story. I picked up a pen and wrote in my notebook, "The sunset doesn't mean the day is over. It means no matter how dark it gets, the sun always comes back. And when it does, it brings a new beginning." 3 years later, I was invited to speak at a writers' conference in Richmond, the same city where I'd once lived, in that studio in Church Hill, writing in the dark before work. I stood on stage in front of 400 people, mostly young women holding copies of my books. I was here 11 years ago, I started, in this same city. I met someone who promised to make my dreams come true, and for 6 years, I believed I needed him to do it. Silence. But the truth is, no one can make your dreams happen for you, and no one can take them away unless you let them. I paused. I stopped fighting the war he wanted me to fight. I stopped trying to prove myself in his world. I built my own. And I learned that the woman he tried to control never existed because I was always free. I just had to believe it. The applause was long and loud. After, in the hallway, a young woman approached holding a stack of pages. "I write," she said quietly, "but I'm scared. Scared I'm not good enough. Scared that I took her hands. You are good enough. Your voice matters. And if someone tries to convince you otherwise, remember, they're afraid of your power, not your weakness." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "And if you ever need to walk away to find peace, walk. There's no shame in choosing yourself, always." That night I posted on Instagram, now with over 1 million followers. The sun in Richmond sets with a kind of indifferent beauty. It doesn't know about the wars we fight, the chains we break, the voices we reclaim, but it sets anyway. And it reminds us, you can shine no matter who tried to dim you. Walk away when you need to, breathe, and write your own ending. You always had the pen. 8,000 comments in an hour. Thank you for existing. You changed my life. I walked away today. I closed my phone and looked out the window. The sun was setting again, like it always did, like it always would. But this time, I wasn't watching something end. I was witnessing the promise of a new morning, and it was all mine. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the war. It's having the wisdom to walk away and choose peace. It's realizing you don't need to prove anything to people who underestimate you. You just need to believe in yourself. I didn't defeat Garrett by fighting on his terms. I won by building my own field, writing my own rules, shining with my own light. And the most powerful truth of all, the woman they tried to control never existed. Because you were always free, always powerful, always enough. You just needed to walk away long enough to see it. And then, with the pen in your hand and your heart unchained, you rewrote your own ending. I'll be back with another story next week.